Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Shuffling Notes. I'm your co-host Prankit here with Razi. Hi Razi, how are you doing today?
Hi Prankit, just looking forward to what you've got today.
Awesome. So I wanted to talk about sort of the history and evolution of one of my favorite songs, and I imagine maybe one of your favorite songs as well, which is I'm Yours by Jason Mraz.
Okay, I mean, that's a starter.
Yeah, so I've always been very fascinated with that track, and I've always there's kind of different versions of it, and if you trace it through, from 2004 up till sort of 2024, over these 20 years, the song has evolved quite a bit. Although it still preserves its core, that sort of simplistic nature that kind of appeals, or what's appealing about it, but there's complexities laid throughout. So I thought it'd be interesting to sort of go through that journey a little bit. And I don't know how much you know about the history, but the song was sort of originally written in 2004. So Mraz had spent some time in Hawaii and in Jamaica, and so there's a lot of sort of reggae influences, as you can tell, coming into the song. That sort of Bob Marley style chord progression, and also like the ukulele type music. It's almost like it's a guitar, but sometimes on the original track it sounds like it's like a ukulele playing. So yeah.
I got two parts of questions. Well, actually one part. So I think the reggae influence sort of comes. So I don't know why he was, featuring Toca Rivera a few times, and even on stage, which is live. And so, I thought the influence is sort of coming from the kind of music Toca Rivera was into, and that they were just close friends, and he just got inspired.
No, it's a good point. Yeah, I think actually, like, if you look at a lot of Mraz's work, there's a lot of reggae influences, throughout, and in fact, one of his like latest albums, and like the Look for the Good track and everything, you can hear it. It's very much a reggae album. Although like initially, like the reggae bit was kind of pulled back in some of his tracks, and maybe they were a bit more commercialized. But I think you're right. There's always been like a reggae influence, and I'm sure Toca plays a big part in that as well. But what happened in this instance is he went, he traveled around sort of Jamaica and Hawaii, and he came back to San Diego, and he just sort of, he got inspired by some of the music he was listening to, and he started sort of playing on his electric guitar, surprisingly, and just sort of kind of humming the song, and it kind of, the way he says it sort of all kind of came to him.
I had an electric guitar plugged probably directly into this device. This was my studio at the time, back in 2004.
As he was experimenting, as opposed to like him sitting down and wanting to write a love song, he just sort of started humming and started making up the words and the lyrics.
That's cool. And it's a little difficult to understand the music on an electric, but okay. I mean,
yeah, I know that was the surprising part for me, because I would have thought it was maybe a ukulele he was playing, or a guitar, like acoustic guitar at the very least. But yeah, it's, you never know where inspiration comes from. So he wrote the song in 2004, and then he sort of started performing it live in some of his shows, and the response was really good. But it wasn't like properly released till 2008. What he did release was a demo version of the track in 2005 on his limited edition EP called Extra Credit, which was released to promote the then album Mr. A to Z. So there was like a studio recorded, you could call it that, like a early demo version of the track that was released earlier on in 2005, but it was not till 2008 that he actually properly released it in the album We Sing, We Dance, We Steal Things. And the way he's described it is that basically, before this album We Sing, We Dance, We Steal Things, he realized he has to release this song. It's just so popular. And in the studio, they were just literally trying to kind of recreate the demo song and just maybe a bit more, refined and polished version of it, which is sort of the main
which is the main difference between the live versions and the album version. There's always a difference.
Yeah. I'm going to get to that, because I think it's interesting how some of those changes came. But I was kind of like I was very interested in like why did it take 4 years? Because I was imagining maybe there's like some studio drama, or like, you know, because it's such a great song. Like, why would it take you so long to actually put it on an album?
Yeah.
And you know, the answer I found was surprisingly, well, it was very surprising to me. It was surprisingly simple. That like he just never thought it was a good enough song. He always kind of imagined it. I think he put it in the words like it's like a kid's nursery rhyme. He always thought it was like a very kiddish song, like a novelty song. He said it was too simple, like, you know, that opening riff that he plays, the rhythm. He always intended to put more melodies in it and like put additional bits to it. And he just happened to perform it live in the early days when, you know, he was writing it. And when he started seeing how much it resonated with people, that's when it kind of hit him that, you know what, this could actually be something. And it turned out to be probably his, you know, most influential song, his most popular song,
right?
I would probably say to date, right?
I mean, it is, right? I mean, even if you don't know Jason Mraz, you know I'm yours.
Yeah, you know the track. You would have heard it. Like somewhere you would have heard it. It's hard to just not hear it and go through life. And, you know, after releasing it, you know, it became number 6 on the Billboard Hot 100 chart. It kind of, I think at the time it set the record for the longest running track on the chart. I think 76 consecutive weeks. It was also nominated in the 2009 Grammy. So there's definitely a lot of recognition. I'm glad he did finally release it.
True.
And yeah, he got to see the results of that as well.
That's true.
So, yeah. So I mean, over time, there's been a lot of versions of this track. There was a version also he sang on for Sesame Street. I don't know if you've seen that with Elmo. It's like different lyrics. It's a very crazy video as well. Funny little gimmick sort of thing he did. But if you go back and look at some of the original recordings, he's always kind of using these like power chords on the guitar and with like muted sounds. So it was like a different way he was playing, and again, almost like he was trying to emulate the ukulele sound on a guitar, maybe. But if you see over time, he's kind of evolved how he plays it. Now he uses a capo with with open chords, with a much fuller guitar type sound to it. But I know that like one of the things that caused him to change how he plays was actually someone else's cover of his song. So there's this Korean guitarist, I think you might have seen on YouTube, called Sunga Jung, who does these amazing sort of covers of songs.
I think I've seen sometime somewhere I've heard the name, so I think I've seen something.
Yeah,
in relation to Jason Mraz.
Right. Yeah. So he was a kid when he started off, and basically, you know, the way he'd play the guitar, he'd play the rhythm and he'd play sort of the melody at the same time. He had a very kind of unique finger picking style of how he plays it. And again, like, you know, if you guys are watching this video and you haven't seen Sunga Jung's cover of I'm Yours, you know, just pause and go and listen to it and come back. It makes so much more sense. Well, it is a really amazing cover. And you know, I think Jason kind of came across it at some point and he was quite inspired by it. So he got in touch with Sunga Jung, and then they also performed live a couple of times. But since, you know, he saw that, Mraz also kind of tweaked how he plays the song, and he started playing kind of like the melody with the chords. And I think that's the version he sort of plays now. Whenever you see him live, it's this newer version, and it's such an inspiring story of like an artist seeing a cover of this song and almost changing the way they approach the song because the cover is so amazing.
Right. Okay.
So now kind of like, I think over time Mraz has sort of evolved it more and more, and what's interesting to me is like he changes the lyrics a little bit as well now. Instead of like, you know that line, like the God-forsaken right to be loved, like he changed it to like God intended right.
I know it. Yes, I think I've heard, there's a version for that, right?
Oh, I think it's live versions. I don't know if there's like a version he's released on.
Probably the live version. Like I've heard the other, you know, this intended part of it. Yeah.
Yeah, God intended right, and he's spoken about it a few times. So there's a YouTube commentary of his of this song as well, where he kind of talks about it. And I think he just says that like when he was writing the lyrics, because it was all kind of coming to him and he was sort of experimenting with the music, he wasn't paying too much attention of like what are the lyrics actually saying. And you know, the term kind of like God-forsaken right to be loved, doesn't even like sound correct. Like, what does it even mean? You know, like it's just. I think he said it was like his like vocabulary. You know, this is just how he speaks, and so it made it into the song. But he's kind of changed it to be God intended, right? The other thing I've also like. I think he, at least in the recent performances that I've seen, he omits is that line like, you know, I will nibble your ear, like that very specific, romantic kind of line in it. And I think, I don't know what you think of the song, but I think he's always kind of intended it to be less of a love song and more just like him, you know, singing it to the world, right?
That being the case, I think it's more of a, it can also be a friendly song. While it does have those sexual references every now and then, besides the "and I will never hear," and it's you know, it's just about trying to get close to someone. The whole
there's a physical intimacy that he teases a few times in the lyrics.
That is true, and
but he,
you know,
good.
So I was just, I mean, it's while I would say this, yes, it's a song that he sings to the world, but he's also kind of, you know, he could be singing it for anyone. While it can happen to you in any situation, it just be a playful song.
Yeah, no, it's
setting the mood right.
Observation. yeah. It is a very much vibe, right?
Yeah.
It's more than like, you're not necessarily listening to it and, I mean, you might be thinking about, you know, your significant other or you know, romanticizing it. But the track is actually just a good vibe. You kind of feel very positive after listening to it. It kind of, you know, hypes you up a little bit.
Yes.
And I think the way he, at least now, when he looks back at it, to him, it's like he's just singing to the open world, to the open universe, you know, like, I'm yours. It's less of like, romantic. It's almost spiritual, I think, in his words. Like he at least that's how he approaches it. And regardless of the lyrics, I feel like, you know, at some level when you hear the song, maybe that's how you feel as well. It's not always romantic. It's just like, you know, it's kind of soothes you. It's a very feel good, you know, the chord progression, the melody, the harmonies,
the reggae,
especially the original track. And some of the live versions are so interesting. Like he's done some of these performances where he plays it like a reggae song with like different sets of instruments, and he's spoken about it as well, because like sometimes he's like, he doesn't want to change the song too much because that's what the audience recognizes. But at the same time, you know, if you're playing the same song for 20 years, you're gonna, you know, you want to change things up, and he doesn't shy away from that. So there's so many versions. Like I've just gone down rabbit holes over the years, just like discovering a new version that I'm like, how did this come about? And I'm like trying to find other performances where he's played it like this, you know, and he's done so many collabs with other artists playing this song, I'm Yours, as well. It's pretty amazing to watch. And it's sort of, the song's almost found a second life as well after all these years. It's become a really popular ukulele song. So like people who play the ukulele, for them also it's kind of become a go-to song, even though, you know,
it's easier to catch on.
Yeah. And it kind of goes with the chord progression and everything. It's just, I mean, there's songs which are hits and then kind of the world moves on. But then there's some sort of songs that really showcase how like powerful art can sort of continue to impact people around the world after decades. I feel like I'm Yours goes into this category. I know that a lot of people maybe at the time might have thought this is like a one-hit wonder sort of thing, you know. But I feel like the song, regardless of what you think of Mraz, I feel like that track definitely continues to have its presence in sort of pop culture, and it's somewhere in people's minds, right?
Agreed. I mean, it's an influence, if there's anything to add to that. The song itself is an influence.
I agree. So yeah, I think, you know, that sort of really wraps this up. It's just, I've been down this rabbit hole and I've just been looking into, like, over the years I've just been following this song very closely. You know, it's one of my go-to songs, and I'm sort of just messing around with my guitar and always kind of changing it up a little bit as well. And yeah, I'm excited to see, you know, I'm sure Mraz is going to kind of continue innovating this song, but also other artists like Sungajung, and there's a lot of others who've done amazing covers of this, just, you know, continue to evolve it and change it over time. So it's an interesting journey to be a part of.
True.
Awesome. Well, thanks for your time, guys. If you have a favorite live version of this song, please let us know. You know, I'm always trying to. I'm a collector of his of live versions of this song, as you could tell.
We should make a playlist. We'll make a playlist of this and put it up.
Yeah, YouTube playlist of all the interesting live versions.
Oh, 5 years.
That's a good chat.
Yeah.
Yeah,
quite
5 years.
Quite a niche.
Awesome. All right, well, thanks for your time, guys. We'll see you again on another sort of interesting journey.
Cheers.
Well, open up your mind and see like me.